give it up for Kimberly Duncan.
La 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 la. I drove down into the Detroit Henry Ford Hospital parking garage for what felt like the 1,000th time. This garage does not lead you up towards the heavens. Oh no, in Detroit, we keep it real. You will be spun down into what feels like Satan's den to park your car. I mean, you're going to a hospital. What do you want, beauty? Fuck that. You'll get despair, and you will like it. And I felt that despair every time I went to the hospital to visit my mother or father. I would think to myself, what sick Beelzebub motherfucker designed this parking garage? I mean, seriously, it was like the most depressing, dark, dank, disgusting place ever created. I never really knew the color gray until I entered that garage. So on my way to the hospital, in order to cut through some of the horror I knew I would soon be experiencing, I would listen over and over again and sing along to Glitter in the Air. And I know it is not what Pink had intended for this song, but it related to what I was going through at the time in a way that no other song seemed to. Have you ever thrown a fistful of glitter in the air? Have you ever looked fear in the face and said, I just don't care? I squeezed my peace sign covered Prius into a spot on level 2 of the garage, fortunate to know that I would avoid running into the Prince of Darkness that dwelled in the depths of level 3. Seriously, he lives down there. I was about to look fear in the face once again, and I would love to tell you that I said I just don't care, but I don't think I ever did. You see, on this night, my mother was dying, so some would say the scene in this garage was appropriately set. Dark, depressing, and gray. I put my car in park and I sighed, the grief sigh, the sigh that feels like you're trying to lift a brick off your chest, but always without success. It's only half past the point of no return, the tip of the iceberg, the sun before the burn. I sat in my car and listened for a moment to Pink because I had dreaded getting out, but soon I forced myself to turn the car off and get out of the car. And I swear to you, in this parking garage, you always felt like someone was behind you. So I started a brisk walk toward the elevator, and as I reached out for the up button, I turned around as I had done many, many times before to check that no one was really behind me, and I was alone, or so it seemed. The thunder before the lightning and the breath before the phrase. Have you ever felt this way? Hey. Inside the elevator that always smelled like piss, I thought to myself, maybe they constructed this garage for the ride up, to make you believe you were moving into the light of hope. Because when the elevator brought you to the outdoor level, you couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. I guess they just didn't get that it wouldn't last very long, because soon you would be walking into a hospital. Have you ever hated yourself for staring at the phone? I had waited to hear from my mother's oncologist, hoping that he would tell me she was going to be fine. She had just finished an 8-week inpatient treatment for leukemia, and she had been locked in the hospital that entire time, so I had visited her and checked on her and tried to entertain her every single day, hence the countless visits to the Circle of Hell parking garage. For her age, the odds weren't good, but when she left the hospital, everyone was very hopeful. They were all really impressed at how well that old Belgian lady had made it through. Your whole life waiting on the ring to prove you're not alone. The treatment didn't work, the doctor said. How long does she have, I asked. Not long. Days. That word days stopped my breath, and I didn't know if I would ever exhale again. You see, only days earlier, I had watched my father die. He had already been sick, but he'd taken a fall down a flight of stairs, and he ended up developing sepsis, and he died. And I didn't know then that I only had 25 more days to spend with my mom, and a lot of it was going to be killed by leukemia. It's only half past the point of oblivion, the hourglass on the table, the walk before the run. I power walked through the lobby of the hospital that I knew only too well to the back elevators that would lead me up to the room where my mother had been placed on hospice. And when I entered the room, my mother's favorite nurse, the one she had bonded the most with during her 8-week imprisonment, was standing over her bed. And my mother was asleep. Well, my mother was in a drug-induced sleep because leukemia had taken over her body, and she was in way too much pain to be awake. And when Nurse Jennifer saw me, she walked over and gave me a big hug. And I am talking a long, very tight squeeze of a hug. "Are you going to stay the night?" She asked the question before I'd even had a chance to say hello, and I said, I don't know. You should stay the night. Jennifer was a cancer nurse for a very long time, and she knew what cancer looked like. She knew how cancer worked, and she definitely knew when cancer was going to kill you. The breath before the kiss, and the fear before the phrase. Have you ever felt this way? Hey. They brought me an oversized chair that folded out into a bed, and I spent the night alone with my doped-up mother, who would never open her eyes again. And I laid on that bed beside her and wrapped my arms around her for a very long time. And I wanted to say something profound, something meaningful that she would hear even in her sleep. The only thing I could think to say was, "I'm sorry, Mom, and I wish I had been strong enough to save you." And then I watched Survivor. And I remember laying in that overstuffed chair watching fucking Survivor, and I was thinking to myself, man, your mom is dying. What the fuck is wrong with you? Turn that TV off. And I fell asleep at some point. I woke up with a start, and I jumped up and thought, oh God, please don't let her have died while I was watching mind-numbing television. And I reached out and I felt her breath, and I exhaled. And as a sense of relief washed over me, I knew if I was going to survive another moment, I must get coffee. And so I walked out into the hallway, and I told the nurse on duty that I'd be right back. And as I made my way to a cart in the lobby that sold coffee, my phone rang, and it was a friend of mine. And he was asking how I was doing, and I told him my mother was dying, that she could literally die any minute. And as I said those words, a voice in my head said, "Go back now." La, 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 la. And when I ran into my mother's room, I could hear her breath like she was gasping for air. And I just literally flung my body on top of her body, and I yelled, "Ma, it's me, Kimberly." And then she did this weird, circle of the head, and she opened her mouth like she was growling. And it looked to me like she was fucking pissed. Like she was protesting having to leave. And then she took her last breath, and I laid my head on her chest, and I felt nothing. No rise, no fall. You called me sugar, no, no. And then I heard a lullaby. And I looked to the nurse that was standing in the room with me now, and I was like, "What is that?" And she said a baby was born, that they played a lullaby over the hospital intercom every time a new baby was born. And that was minutes after my mother left this world. And I said to that nurse, "Man, I hope that baby has an ounce of my mother's spirit in it, because that is going to be one awesome kid." Have you ever wished for an endless night? I wished that was an endless night. I wish she was still here. And sometimes I still wish I could have saved her. lassoed the moon and the stars and pulled that rope tight. It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorite movies. And my favorite scene in it is without a doubt the Buffalo Gal scene when Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed are walking down the street and he's in his football uniform and she's in her robe. And at one point she picks up a stone and she throws it through the window of the old Granville house and she makes a wish. And George says, what'd you wish, Mary? And she won't answer. She's like, what is it you want, Mary? What do you want? You want the moon? You just say a word and I'll throw a lasso around it. Hey, that's a good idea. I'll give you the moon, Mary. And she says, I'll take it. And then what? And he says, well, then you'll swallow it, see? And it'll all dissolve. And the moonbeams will shoot out of your fingers and your toes and the ends of your hair. And I love that idea. I love that you can take a beautiful part of this world, a part that was once here and now gone, and you could swallow it and make it a part of you, and then you can shoot it into the world so they never forget. And I love thinking that maybe my mom did latch on to a bit of the moon and the stars on her way out. She sprinkled it over that newborn baby. And my heart really, really wants to believe that my mother is still with me, that she's watching over me, watching over us. And wherever she is, I mean, even now, wouldn't it be awesome if all around us she was sprinkling a fistful of her miraculous glitter in the air? Thank you.